Snow drifted down in soft flakes, covering the streets of New York in a glittering blanket. Christmas Eve had always been lonely for Ethan Cole, a millionaire single dad who had traded boardroom victories for bedtime stories after his wife's passing. That night, while driving back from buying last-minute gifts for his 8-year-old daughter, he caught sight of something that made him slam the brakes. A woman, thin and shivering, was crouched beside an overflowing trash bin behind a diner. Her fingers dug desperately through scraps, pulling out a half-eaten sandwich. Her clothes were worn, her hair tangled, but her eyes, when they met his, were startlingly alive, filled with both shame and defiance. Ethan's first instinct was to look away. After all, the city was filled with people struggling. But something about this woman, on this night of all nights, anchored his feet to the frozen ground. "Are you hungry?" he asked softly. She stiffened, clutching the sandwich as if it were treasure. "I'm not stealing," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm just trying to survive." Her words pierced him deeper than any business deal gone wrong ever had. Here he was, blessed with wealth, a warm home, and a child who still believed in the magic of Christmas, while this stranger had nothing. And yet, her pride refused to let her beg. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this brief encounter was about to change not only her life, but his as well. Ethan hesitated, his breath clouding in the frosty air. He could have walked away, pretended he hadn't seen her, but something about her trembling hands and stubborn eyes wouldn't let him. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The woman glanced down, ashamed. "Clara," she murmured. "Clara," he repeated softly, as though testing the sound. "Listen, you can't stay out here tonight. It's freezing. Come with me. At least get a hot meal." Immediately, Clara shook her head. "No, I can't. People don't just invite strangers home. You don't even know me." Ethan almost smiled. "And yet here I am inviting you. My daughter is waiting for me. She'd be upset if I told her I left someone hungry on Christmas Eve." At the mention of a child, Clara's face softened. She hugged her coat tighter around her fragile frame, torn between mistrust and desperation. Finally, with a quiet sigh, she nodded. The drive back was silent except for the car's heater buzzing to life. Ethan glanced at her through the mirror, her cheeks red from the cold, her eyes darting nervously at the leather seats and warm lights. She looked out of place, as though she'd stumbled into a world that wasn't hers. When they pulled into the driveway of his large suburban home, Clara froze. The mansion glowed with twinkling lights, a towering Christmas tree visible through the window. "I can't go in there," she whispered. "People like me, we don't belong in places like this." Ethan turned to her, his expression firm yet kind. "Clara, tonight isn't about where you belong. It's about no one being alone or hungry on Christmas." And before she could protest further, the front door opened, revealing a little girl in pajamas, her face lighting up with excitement. "Daddy!" cried little Sophie, rushing barefoot onto the porch. Her pigtails bounced as her eyes widened at the sight of Clara. "Who's this?" Ethan bent down, kissing his daughter's forehead. "This is Clara. She's our guest tonight." Sophie's face lit up with a warmth that only children seemed capable of. "Hi, Clara! Come in. It's Christmas Eve, we have cookies and hot cocoa, and you can sit by the fire." Clara hesitated on the doorstep, the glow of the home spilling around her like a promise she wasn't sure she deserved. Sophie reached out her tiny hand. Something in that innocent gesture disarmed Clara's defenses, and slowly she stepped inside. The living room smelled of pine and cinnamon. Stockings hung neatly above the fireplace, and the tree glittered with ornaments and ribbons. Clara stood frozen, drinking it all in as though she'd stumbled into a dream. "Sit, please," Ethan urged, guiding her to the couch. Sophie skipped off and returned moments later with a plate of sugar cookies shaped like stars. She plopped down beside Clara and offered one. Clara took it hesitantly, her fingers trembling. When she bit into the sweet, buttery cookie, tears unexpectedly welled in her eyes. "It's been so long since I had something like this," she whispered. Sophie looked up at her with wide, innocent eyes. Then you'll have lots tonight. Daddy says no one should be hungry on Christmas. Clara glanced at Ethan, her voice catching. Why are you doing this for me? You don't even know me. Ethan met her gaze steadily. Because once, someone showed me kindness when I least deserved it. Maybe it's my turn. Clara's chest tightened, as though a long-forgotten hope stirred inside her. Later that evening, as the fire crackled and Sophie dozed off on the rug with a half-finished cup of cocoa, Ethan noticed Clara staring into the flames. Her shoulders were tense, as if she carried a weight too heavy for her frail frame. You don't have to tell me anything, Ethan said gently. But if you want to, I'll listen. Clara's lips pressed together, trembling. For a long time she said nothing, until finally the words broke free, soft and halting. I wasn't always like this. I had a job, an apartment, even dreams. She swallowed hard. But then, my mom got sick. I spent everything I had on her treatments. When she passed, I couldn't keep up with the rent. I lost everything. Her voice cracked, and she turned away in shame. One thing led to another, and here I am. Digging through trash just to stay alive. Ethan's chest ached. He had faced loss too. His wife's sudden death had left him broken for years. But hearing Clara's story stirred something deeper. He saw not just a homeless woman, but someone who had sacrificed everything out of love. You did what any good daughter would do, he said firmly. That doesn't make you less. It makes you more. Clara blinked at him, startled. No one had spoken to her that way in years, without pity, without judgment, only respect. For the first time in months, maybe years, she allowed herself to lean back into the sofa, a flicker of peace settling over her. But in the back of her mind, one haunting question lingered. How long could this kindness possibly last? Christmas morning arrived with the smell of pancakes and laughter echoing through the house. Sophie tugged Clara into the kitchen, insisting she help decorate the table with holly and red napkins. Clara moved awkwardly at first, afraid she'd break something in this world that seemed so fragile and perfect. But Sophie's chatter was infectious. You should sit next to me, Sophie declared, sliding a chair beside hers. Daddy makes the best pancakes. Well, they're a little burnt sometimes, but that's okay. Clara laughed softly, a sound that surprised even herself. It felt strange, light, almost forgotten. Ethan placed a plate before her, warm food steaming. Clara stared at it, her hands frozen on the fork. I can't remember the last time someone set a place for me, she whispered. Ethan's gaze softened. Then get used to it. Around here, everyone gets a seat at the table. The meal passed with laughter, Sophie telling silly stories, Clara listening as though she'd stumbled into another life. But beneath her gratitude, Clara's heart ached. She knew this couldn't last. She was a guest, a stranger with no home, no future. And yet, she couldn't deny how much she longed for this warmth to stay. Later, while Sophie unwrapped presents under the tree, Ethan quietly placed a small box in front of Clara. She frowned, hesitant to touch it. Open it, he urged. Inside lay a pair of knitted gloves, soft and new. Clara's throat tightened as she brushed the fabric with trembling fingers. They're just gloves, Ethan said gently. But to me, they mean something bigger. It's a start. Tears filled Clara's eyes. No gift had ever meant so much. Clara sat by the glowing tree, her new gloves resting in her lap, while Sophie twirled around with her toys. The warmth of the home wrapped around her like a blanket she never wanted to take off. But reality pressed in, sharp and cold. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. I can't stay here. You've already done too much for me. I don't belong in your world. Ethan leaned forward, his expression steady. Clara, when my wife died, I thought I'd never feel whole again. Sophie was the only reason I kept going. But last night, when you walked into our home, it felt like something shifted. Like maybe this house wasn't so empty anymore. Clara's eyes widened. But I'm no one, just a woman who lost everything. He shook his head. You're someone who gave everything for love. That doesn't make you less, it makes you extraordinary. And maybe, that's exactly what Sophie and I need. At that moment, Sophie ran over, hugging Clara's waist. Please don't go, she pleaded, her small voice full of hope. You're my Christmas present. Clara's heart cracked wide open. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she held Sophie close. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Wanted. Ethan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Stay. Not just for tonight. Stay, and let us figure this out together. Clara looked at him, at Sophie, at the twinkling lights that seemed to glow brighter than ever. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe in miracles. All right, she whispered, smiling through her tears. I'll stay. And so, on that Christmas Eve, a lonely millionaire, his little girl, and a homeless woman found what they all had been searching for: family.